All right, let's see how the Conservatives are dealing with this. In a moment, they finished fourth in the Hamilton by-election, just 6% of the vote. And a little earlier, I spoke to the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp. Chris Philp, the White House is warning that putting a Chinese embassy near the city would be a national security risk, according to a national newspaper this morning. What's your view?
Well, I agree with the United States. We think it is a security risk. In government, the Conservatives were very clear we should not be allowing the Chinese to build this super embassy. It is likely to become a base for their pan-European espionage activities. And it sits very close to, of course, the UK's financial centre. It's very close to 3 critical data centres, some cables connecting, data cables connecting, for example, Canary Wharf to the city, run very close or indeed even underneath the site. And it is very likely the Chinese would use it to organise espionage activities. We've seen the Chinese government cracking down on dissidents, running secret police stations in the UK, even putting bounties on the heads of dissidents, some of whom I've met. We should not be giving permission to this.
OK, thank you. This week, this is spending review week. We've heard a lot about what you would and wouldn't do and what you think the government's failing on. Just one thing to be clear about. Would you restore the winter fuel allowance for everyone who had it before?
Well, we completely opposed what the government did, taking fuel allowances away from everybody. There are questions about whether the very richest pensioners need it, but that is not what the government did. The government took...
Let's forget about what they did. I'm just asking you what you would do. And what you're saying is that actually you wouldn't restore it for everybody.
Well, just to be clear, we completely opposed what the government did a few months ago, which was take it away from pensioners, going right down to pensioners on half the minimum wage. They've pushed pensioners into poverty. They've put their lives at risk. It was morally indefensible what Labour did to pensioners this winter, and we don't yet know what they're going to do again.
Did you say lives at risk for 300 quid?
Well, there are pensioners who were unable to heat their home when it was really cold, and people do die of hypothermia, don't they?
OK, well, I just wonder whether sometimes the language on these things becomes a little bit extravagant on all sides. Just very quickly, your colleague Mel Stride's got a very unfortunate habit. He speaks English and people understand him. Said that Liz Truss was responsible for much of the nation's current economic predicament. Do you agree?
Well, if that's a reference to the mini-budget, that obviously, at the time, had a bad impact. It wasn't properly constructed. And Mel Stride was saying that that is not something that a Conservative government would ever do again.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that I think you were in the room when they agreed that mini-budget, didn't they? You were actually in the Treasury.
Well, if you read Tim Shipman's book about this and Anthony Seldon's book, you will see that at the time I was arguing for spending restraint, or indeed spending...
I don't need to read the book, you were there.
Or indeed, well, I'm telling you, this is what happened. The book is accurate. The book tells you that I was arguing for spending restraint.
Oh, so you opposed the mini-budget?
I opposed the way that it was constructed. I was arguing for spending restraint. Those warnings were sadly not listened to. Obviously, I was bound by collective responsibility, as you know. But if you read those 2 books...
You could have been unbound by resigning.
If you read those 2 books, you'll see what I was saying behind closed doors.
I don't need to read the books. I'm talking to the author of the event. Why didn't you resign?
Well, it's a good question. I took the view that making the case internally to control spending was the better thing to do, and I stayed and I tried to make that case internally behind closed doors, but it wasn't successful. All
right, look. This week, bad week for the Conservatives. You came fourth in the Hamilton by-election, almost lost your deposit. Voters are turning to Mr Farage. If you and Reform had been in any way united in that by-election, you would have won. Isn't it time for you to start thinking about a more constructive approach to Reform than what you're about to say, which is they want to destroy the Tory parties, we'll never talk to them?
Well, there we are. You've just given me the answer.
I know, straight away. I'm just asking you, isn't it time that you came up with another answer?
Well, I mean, Nigel Farage is saying he wants to destroy the Conservative Party, which makes it quite difficult to work together. They are all essentially a protest party. They're offering... you just asked about Liz Truss, right? I mean, they're offering populist policies that are essentially Liz Truss on steroids. I mean, Nigel Farage, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, has made tax cut pledges and let me finish, and welfare increase promises that add up to over £100 billion a year. Now, that is 2.5 times bigger than the Liz Truss policies.
We've heard lots from him.
Yeah.
The point is that effective democracy, liberal democracies need an effective opposition. And at the moment, with the greatest respect, it doesn't seem that you're doing very well on that. And I just wonder if, for example, this morning, your leader is... her big story this morning is promising to ban the burqa. Is this really the right priorities for the centre-right at the moment?
Yeah, that isn't quite what she said. But look, we are an effective opposition. We're the ones who are coming up with practical plans to reduce immigration. We came up, for example, with a whole deportation bill, with detailed plans to reduce immigration and remove people that have no right to be here. We did the serious work to do that. We put it to a vote in Parliament. Labour voted against it. Reform were absolutely nowhere. Just last week, we launched a serious commission on coming out of the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, to enable us to take back control of our borders. We are doing the serious work on this, reform whether it's taxation or whether it's borders, reform our shooting from the hip, saying the first thing that comes into Nigel Farage's head, they don't have a serious plan, but we do. Now, I know that people are unhappy with the Conservatives. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, but we're the ones doing the serious work to win back trust and to develop plans to fix our country's future.
When you get a bit further along the line on that, on the ECHR, let's have you back and talk about that.
I'll be here, I promise.
Thank you so much, Chris.
OK.